Hey guys, Francois T here, and welcome to the Gay National Calling Day / Social Issues / Fun Chat Day. I am privileged to be joined here by Sarah and Marisa. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hey.
And they will be joining me to discuss the first topic that we will be talking about in today's chat, which is something that is very, very important, especially to Australians, but also for the sake of civil rights. As you guys know, I've discussed this issue a couple of times on my channel. At the moment, there are postal votes going out to people all around Australia, anyone that's old enough to vote, with the option. It's not enforced, it's not compulsory, but with the option to vote on whether same-sex couples should have the right to marry. So we're bringing this up as a topic of discussion. Now, if you haven't seen my video, feel free to go over to it. I did a public vote yesterday, actually, and I publicly voted yes. So very happy that I did that, and I've sent my vote off. But let me cross over to my wonderful guests that I have here. I have, as say, Sarah is from Sydney in Australia, and Marisa is from Canada. And first of all, before we come back to talking about it at home, I was privileged to be talking to Marisa about the legalization of same-sex marriage in Canada, and apparently Canada was the fourth country to legalize same-sex marriage. So Marisa, what's it like over there? Is it a non-issue in Canada at the moment?
Yeah, it's a non-issue. Like my kids, they go to Catholic school and there's gender-neutral bathrooms and everything. Like there's just no one cares.
So it seems pretty open to that whole thing over in Canada.
Yeah, which is
Awesome.
fantastic. Obviously, we're very behind here. It's very archaic. I've spoken to a few people. I've volunteered on what we call the Say Yes Marriage campaign. I've spoken to a few people, and I've had some wonderful people come back to me and say that it is rather archaic, and I totally agree. I've said that a few times in my chats and on my channel. Now, Sarah, also a fellow Australian from Sydney, as I said. What's your thoughts about all this? Let's open up with a bit of a discussion about our thoughts about this.
I think it's absolutely crazy. I remember about a year ago, this was all going around. There was discussions about whether this, well, at least this postal survey that's happening in Australia was going to happen. And obviously people didn't want it to happen because it's very costly, and it's sort of, asking the whole country to vote on a group of people's rights is a little bit crazy, but it's happening.
Yeah.
But obviously,
And what did you say the price was, Francois?
The cost of to put all this out there.
122 million.
Yeah.
$122 million.
Yeah.
And let's be completely honest about this. $122 million to send out postal votes on whether same-sex couples should have the right to marry, which it is not compulsory to make that vote. And for anyone listening outside of Australia, I want it known that any other time you vote in Australia, you have to vote, otherwise you're fined. This is the one time you don't actually have to vote at all.
Non-compulsory this time.
Yeah.
Non-compulsory, non-binding. So that's fun.
Yeah, and that's another part that I definitely want to talk about, Sarah. So it is a non-compulsory vote, as we've said, but it's also non-binding. So the majority of Australia can come back and say yes, and government have every right to turn around and say, no, we're not going to change the law anyway. What's your thought on the fact that it's non-binding?
Well, I guess that's why everyone was really opposed to it happening, because it is spending a lot of money. It is getting the entire of Australia involved in something that's not binding anyway. And that's just really sad, like it almost is just not necessary. It's not worth it at all. I mean, yes, it's good because, I mean, maybe it is a step forward for us because obviously our government is not getting behind this and just getting it done. So maybe it is a step forward. Maybe it is a good thing to hear that hopefully majority of Australia wants it to happen, but it is still a bit disappointing that it isn't binding. And we don't know. I mean, we're going to find out the results in November, I think November 15th, I think. But we
I
don't know what's going to happen after that. We have no clue what's going to happen.
I
yeah,
actually like the fact that it's not non-binding, but non-compulsory, because I feel like you're gonna have people who are really passionate about it one way or the other voting. You're not just gonna have people forced to check a box and sending it in, not actually caring.
Yeah, I mean, I do suppose that means that people are actually really wanting, people that are putting in their vote really, or their vote are really wanting to get that out there and
Their
let
opinion
people
is,
know.
whether it's a yes or a no, is going to be a very strong opinion because they're taking that time. It's not a forced vote. So I think I
Yeah,
can, like, even if it does come back as a no, I mean, that's going to be pretty tragic,
very
but
tragic.
it's going to show that there's a lot of people with that much passion against it. And then they're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, what can we do to create equality that doesn't make other people feel excluded as well?
On online polls and votes, um, in the past, it has shown that majority of Australia via these online polls are for marriage equality and for same-sex marriage. So, based on that, most of Australia is for it. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes, I guess.
Well,
definitely.
is Australia, like I know this, the US, I believe they have an official church. Like they're Christians. Like
We are
they
more, yeah, classed as a Christian country, I think.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Canada does not have an official religion or church. I
Our
don't know
country
if
has
that is
definitely
going,
been based on like Christian religion for a long time. So,
like I
um,
know that's our main faith here, but it's not like our country itself doesn't stand behind any one faith. Like
would you agree that Australia Francois is well, has been known as a mostly Christian country?
I would, if we are to look at any specific religion and say which mold do we fit into, I would say yes, and I would certainly say that it is influenced in Parliament for sure.
I would definitely, yeah, I agree. I agree
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. So it's interesting that we're bringing up the topic of religion because there have been a few comebacks from people who are on the no side of the vote. Now, I just want to let you know, in case anyone is listening to this live or in case you're listening to it delayed, despite the fact that I do have an opinion, we all have our opinions, and we may, be very heavily focused on our opinion. Especially for me, it's very personal to me. If you don't agree with the fact that same-sex people should be married in Australia, that's totally fine. Still let us know your opinion. We're not going to bite your head off. This is
As
an
long
open
as
discussion that we're
as
having.
it's kept to a respectful manner on all
Yes.
sides, on
Yeah,
on our part, on your part, then that's okay. Like,
exactly.
yeah,
And that's like the thing. There's been some disrespect on both sides, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But before I do, I wanted to talk about when it comes to religion. Now, as I say, I've been campaigning for the Yes Equality marriage campaign, and I've been calling around speaking to people, and a lot of people who are for the no side keep talking to me about religion. Now, I want to make it perfectly clear, at least from my point of view. I won't speak for every gay person out there or gay friendly person out there, but from my point of view, this is not at all about religion. With
no,
this vote, we are not asking to join your church. We are not asking you to change the Bible. We are not asking you to have your priest or pastor recognize gay marriage in their sermons. We are asking for recognition with the law. It's not a church issue. Sarah
no, not
or
at all. Sorry about that.
Sarah, or even potentially Marissa, you may have heard things. Have either of you heard debates from people on the no side or even the questioning side saying that this is a religious issue?
well, I hear it in the States a lot. Like, I haven't heard much from the Australian side of it, but in the States, that's the biggest problem is the Christian radicals. Like, I don't even, like, I'm a Christian and I say that they're Christian radicals because
There are.
I don't think like that. Like, for me, when I look at scripture, I see Jesus says, love one another and that's that. He doesn't say if and or but or unless. Like,
It's
don't love that person if they're gay. Don't give them the same rights. Don't treat them the same. But when you radical Christian, all they see is the one line where it says abomination.
that's actually a good point to bring up, because I've grown up as a Christian. I went to church. My parents would identify as Christian to a degree, and they are definitely for same-sex marriage and marriage equality. But I have seen quite a few people that still bring up the whole, this is what the Bible says, this is what my religion teaches, this is why I'm completely against it. And then we try to reiterate the point that to us it is a separate issue, religion and someone's rights. But obviously you still see that is the main basis for a lot of people's not wanting it to happen, or their no vote.
Unfortunately, with a lot of people, like of any faith, like I've been like on YouTube and just seen in comments where like the people don't even do anything wrong. They're just not like Christian enough or whatever, and they're getting attacked like, you dress this way, you do this, and it's like, how are you preaching properly if that's what your message is? Like, beating people down. Like, that's not what it's about. So like I think like if you're a Christian or Muslim or Jewish person or whatever, and you're using religion, yeah, like whatever you're identifying as, and you're using religion as your reasoning, you really have to ask yourself, like, if I'm using this as my reason, is my reason really valid? Like, is this what God would want me to do?
Yeah.
Like, is this how I'm treating people?
Yeah. Exactly.
What are your thoughts on it, Francois?
Oh, look, honestly, I'm not Christian or Catholic. So yeah, I'm not either of those. But honestly, my thought is that it is not a religious issue at all. And the way that I live my life is, well, basically on the fundamental moral, do what ye will, lest ye physically harm none. So at the end of the day, I don't have an issue with people who are religious. That's totally fine. Have your religion. This is completely separate to your religion. Mm-hmm. It's not about your religion. Sorry, go ahead.
There are a lot of people that are saying that marriage was a religious institute, a religious thing. And but then there are a lot of other people actually coming in and saying, actually, if you go back in history, it wasn't actually a religious thing that was happening. Like, it became a religious thing, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, actually, like in the entirety of the Bible, there's one marriage actually mentioned, like where there's an actual marriage ceremony, and that's it. And otherwise, basically, it says, then he went into her and they were married, which means they had sex.
Like marriage.
It certainly sounded like that was the
and therefore were married. And like that's how it's worded. Like you hooked up and you were husband and wife.
I think there's definitely different ideas about what marriage is and what it has been and throughout history, but I wouldn't say that it's a particularly a religious thing. It is for some people. And there are a lot of people that are getting married that are in no way religious. There are a lot of people that are atheist or of a different religion, or, just don't believe in anything like that, and they're still going and getting married because they have that right, because it is something that they can choose to do.
And like that's why like religion. You can go sorry. That's why you can go down to a courthouse and get married. You can have a non-religious ceremony. You can hire like a justice of the peace, a judge, whatever. You do not need or a pastor to marry.
You don't have to do it in a church or a chapel. You don't have to bring religion into it whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, you don't even need like a religious leader to do it.
No, you can just get a general celebrant to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you can get ordained online and do it yourself. Like, you can get those.
Exactly.
So, yeah. It's quite interesting, people's views on it, and I get it. I understand that those are their views, and I think I said to someone the other day, I would never make you feel bad for your particular views, but it is a bit upsetting because it doesn't necessarily feel like a good enough reason to me to deny someone their rights.
Yeah. And
I haven't seen a logical sort of argument from these people.
no, I
Not,
mean,
and that's not putting down their views and their beliefs at all. It's just not logical to me.
yeah. No, I
Well,
can.
to me, when I think of marriage, I don't think of it as something like it, like, and I am a Christian, and I don't think of it as like me and my partner and God. I think of it as a spiritual union between me and that partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's something where two souls have connected because I do have like a spirit-based thought. Like that's how I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people who don't feel like that and they still go off and get married. Like either way, like my way and their way, either way doesn't have God involved.
So
Yeah.
moving on to like other reasons why people might be against it, Francois, are there any other things that you've heard people say as to why they don't agree with it or what they think might happen as a result of it?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. One of the biggest things that I've been hearing is that people are viewing this as something that it is not. So the vote itself is very straightforward, very much to the point. If you've received an email, you know what I mean. It literally says, should same-sex people have the right to marry? Tick yes or no. But however, there's some confusion among people thinking that this law is going to, allow gay people to, to adopt, to not adopt, what's the word, to foster, sorry, no, adopt is the word, to adopt children. It's going to change things in schools. It's going to change a whole myriad of things when that's actually not the case at all. I mean, it's literally, as the question asks, we're looking to change the law just based on marriage, and that's all. So I've been fortunate enough to have discussions with some people who are willing to take the time to discuss it with me and try to tell them this is literally all it is, just the one thing. But yeah, that's a major point of view that's been coming across to me, Sarah.
Yeah, and I actually have a Facebook post where it was addressing all those things, if you want me to read it out.
That'd be great.
So it says, there is one question on this form and one question only. Should the law be changed to allow same-sex couples to marry? The question on the survey is not, should I be forced to allow my child to attend Safe Schools program sessions? This postal survey has nothing to do with the Safe Schools program. You have every right to allow your child to attend or to withdraw them from the sessions, regardless of the outcome of the postal survey. So that's one point.
Yeah.
People are worried about.
That's absolutely
It
right.
is not, should religious leaders be forced to perform same-sex marriages? Current anti-discrimination laws allow for organizations which have been established on a set of documented religious or philosophical beliefs not to engage in activities which are in opposition to those religious or philosophical beliefs. This postal survey does not change those laws. So, for example, if you are a religious, if you don't have to marry a gay couple if you are in that business and you can marry people, things like that.
And actually here, like in Canada, um, there's a lot of pastors, priests, whatever, who will do same-sex marriages, and there's a lot
Yeah, there
of
are some.
people who won't, and there's a lot of who won't or who
Exactly,
will.
and it depends on who you
It's up to
find
their
and what they
personal
believe.
belief. Yeah.
Exactly. The next one is, should same-sex couples be allowed to raise children? Gay couples are raising children already. That won't change regardless of the outcome of this postal survey, which is what you brought up before, Francois.
And I have
Yeah.
to jump in with that because if anyone, for example, on the street, asked me in regards to this one vote, should gay people have the right to, have children? I would turn around and say, what the heck has that got to do with this? Like, they're trying to make this an issue that, well, obviously, as you're reading out, issues that it has nothing to do with. So I just wanted to make a blanket statement, and I do want to hear the rest of what you're saying, Sarah, but I just want to make a blanket statement. This vote has nothing to do with children. This vote has everything to do with two consenting adults of the same sex that are in love and want to get married.
And like, I would say that it does have something to do with children in the sense that there are LGBTQI, etc. youth that are gonna, they want to know that they're accepted, that their rights are considered and things like that. They want to see their same-sex friends or family have the same rights. They want their parents to be considered, they might have same-sex parents. Like, they want to know that the world that they live in is a world that accepts people and, really thinks about people's rights. And I think that that is a benefit for the children, because so far they're all talking about all the negatives in relation to the children and none of the positives.
Sarah,
So,
you're absolutely right. Sorry, just a second, Marisa. I did misspeak there. I'm so sorry. Yes, there are children,
totally
there are people that are under the age of being an adult that are either a part of the LGBTIQ community or are for the LGBTIQ community. And I did not mean to offend anyone there. I guess my point was more that this law is not about...
It's not going to change anything.
It's not going to change anything as far as the law and gay people being parents.
Yeah, exactly, and I agree.
That's what I mean.
No, definitely understood. So the next point was, should the sanctity of my marriage be threatened by allowing same-sex couples to marry? And then it says, the sanctity of your marriage is not dependent on anyone other than you and your spouse. It is certainly not dependent on the outcome of a postal survey.
I was actually going to say that earlier because a lot of people in the States argue that it's ruining the sanctity of marriage. And my question has always been, what's wrong with your marriage that these two other people getting married affects your marriage?
And look, if we're bringing up like the divorce...
Like, unless your husband is secretly gay and they suddenly legalize it and he's like, I'm free, and he dumps you, your marriage is fine.
And like talking about like divorce rates and stuff, the divorce rates are really not that good right now, not including same-sex marriage. So, I just don't think that's really, as I said before, a logical thing to bring up. It doesn't actually make sense in the whole scheme of everything going on.
Exactly.
I don't in any way think, and a lot of people have made up the point, like a lot of same-sex couples have been fighting for their right to be together and then fighting for their right to be married, which means not that there aren't heterosexual couples that are putting in that effort to their relationship, but there are a lot of same-sex people that really, really are dedicated to each other and their relationships because they've had to fight for it.
Yeah.
So I can't see how that ruins the sanctity of marriage.
Yeah. This article here that I've got pulled up says it's a doctor speaking, and he says, I think discrimination has very severe long-term adverse psychological and physical health consequences, and as doctors, we're all about people's health and well-being, and supporting marriage equality is going to help people in the LGBTIQ community. The Commonwealth's decisions to hold the 122 million voluntary postal ballot was also criticized, with Professor Brian Owler saying it was a waste of money. It is with some despair that we see this money wasted when what we could be making a real difference to our patients.
Yeah.
It is a waste of money on an issue where every poll indicates that this is something that the majority of the community already supports. The Sydney pediatric and adult neurosurgeon rebuffed statements that have come to light as a result of the campaign, insisting children aren't harmed because they lack a mother or a father, and religious freedom isn't at stake because of marriage equality. As a doctor, I can tell you the only wrong thing with people that are gay is that they can't get married, he said.
That's excellent. Excellent.
That's awesome.
That's honestly amazing that was written, and it's true. Like, you know, everything I can't even put into words.
Like,
I know, right?
he's a pediatric neurosurgeon, and he's dealing with psychological and physical
Yeah,
health,
so
and
it's
he's saying that it's actually damaging citizens to not be able to have this right.
Yeah.
and that's a very bold thing to say, but yeah, I'm appreciative of that being said because yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
And then just the very last point
Yep.
is should insert chosen catastrophe here be allowed to happen as a result of the law being changed to allow same sex couples to marry. I don't want to repeat some of the things people will believe will happen. So I will just say that regardless of the result of this postal survey, the sun will continue to come up. But
Yeah.
I think that we can all, yeah, that's what it's written. I think that we all know some of the things being said, like, oh, if same sex marriages are legalized, what about people going and marrying their animal or people marrying their children or, you know, all the horrible, horrible things that are coming up. And it's like, no, no, no. Don't even go there.
Well, and
It's
if
Like-
you
so
and if you do
wrong.
want to go there, like if somebody says to you, "Well, if we allow that, then people are just going to go off and marry their kids." History is pretty good at saying like that's happened a
It's happened
million and
and
a
it's still
half
happening.
times.
Yeah.
It's illegal now because of these types of votes because it
And
was wrong,
I
not
think we need
because
to
it was something
reiterate.
good.
We need to reiterate the point that same-sex marriage is two consenting adults.
Yeah.
An animal cannot
Exactly.
consent. A child cannot consent, and that's the difference there.
Yeah.
Like that needs to be.
And
That point
if your
needs to be
dog
made.
happens to be at least 21 years old,
See, I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing when it comes to people with the no side. They're just coming up with the most ridiculous things because they can't come up with a logical argument. And when you look at something like that, for example, it's like, okay, it may, like if this vote goes through, it may create a precedent, but that does not mean that all those other things are going to happen. It's basically, well, I'm sorry to say, but I call that fear mongering personally.
That is certainly fear mongering.
it is.
You need to look at what's happening in the rest of the world, all the places that it has been legalized. Are these things an issue? No, it's not an issue because, you know, it's within reason, these things. You're obviously not going to be like, okay, well, that's cool. Now, someone can go marry their dog. Well, look, there are actually some weird laws anyway that have already been in place for a long time that you can marry, you know, an object or whatever in some places and it's legal. Like, you know, like people just, yeah. I don't have any words for that, but no.
No, exactly. I completely agree with you.
I don't think so.
So I just want to quickly jump over to the comments. We've had some comments coming in. So hello to everyone who is joining us. If you have any further comments or questions, please leave them for us. President A says, hi, everyone. So hi, President A.
Hi, President A.
Hey, President A.
And he says,
copying me.
and he says, you should be able to marry whoever you want, straight or gay. Yeah, exactly. Completely agree. And Angels has joined us. She says, hi, darlings. Hi, Angels.
Hi, Angels.
Hey.
And she says, it's good that we have an echo in the room. She says, I mean, I have been pro-equal marriage for years and have helped to campaign for it, which I really appreciate. Personally, Angels, thank you. She says, I'm still pretty shocked Australia doesn't have it yet, and I'm totally pro-gay individuals having kids.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I agree. Like, there's so many people, like, you have 14-year-olds who are getting pregnant, and that is more socially acceptable in some places than the idea of gay marriage.
Yeah.
Or gay people having children, for example.
Yeah, or gay, well, even just gay marriage, though. Like, not even getting into the children part.
Yeah.
You have children having children, and they're and I'm like, they're getting TV shows like the teen pregnancy, teen mom shows and stuff like that. It's glorified. But then people are like, oh, a gay kiss on TV? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Horror. Look, honestly, I'm just gonna say like something personal here. Like, obviously, as I say, this, as much as I would love to give a neutral point of view, I can't, because this absolutely affects me being a gay man. Growing up, I would see like the evolution of straight relationships, how they evolve, and crushes turned to dates, turned to relationships, turned to engagements, turned to marriage, turned to having kids, whatever.
Growing
And
up together.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Even small things like public displays of affection, beautiful thing. Growing up as a child, I was rather naive, thinking that I would be able to have all these things too, without any concerns or issues. Obviously, as I got older, I realized that this is not the case. Now, yes, let's be completely honest, I can have crushes, I can go out on dates, but if I propose to someone, it's for a commitment ceremony, which is completely different to a marriage. I can't necessarily have kids with my partner and have that recognized.
No, and there's also the potential for someone to turn around and say, that's disgusting, or I don't agree with that.
Yes.
Which, you don't expect that as a kid to happen, but you grow up and you realize that could actually happen to you. You could be with your partner on the street and someone could say something.
Yeah.
So.
And going to the commitment ceremony, a commitment ceremony is lovely, but the fact is you have to hire lawyers and go into a lawyer's office and make your spouse your beneficiary, your next of kin, the person in charge of your living will, your like actual will, and everything in between. Like, if you buy a house together, you have to make sure both people are covered under your lawyer's stuff. Like, it is crazy because the law is looking at you guys as roommates.
Yeah,
basically. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that you can't even really own a house together because your marriage isn't a marriage.
You know, if
it's no different than
happens to be unwell or sick and in hospital or dying or has passed away, you know, how many rights do you get as, you know, in that situation where you're not married in the sense of the same rights as married couples?
And if you haven't been able to afford that, like the legal fees of going through and getting a beneficiary and all of that kind of stuff settled away, and there is a wreck, like a car wreck, and your partner is in the hospital, they can easily say to you, we're sorry, you're not next to kin, we need their mother, even if that person's mother
hasn't been in their life, like, or
it hasn't been in their life for 20 years. They're still legally the next of kin, and they can fight and go to court and drag it all out, and it's just not right.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say here as well is what having laws like this has actually done to society. It certainly reflects on society in a big way. When I was younger and still naive about all of this and thought, you know, why can't I be a princess if I marry Prince Charming? One day I was out at an underage club. I met someone, we fell in love instantly, as you do when you're young. Yeah. Now I'm telling this personal story for a reason. We ended up, once the club had closed, going out with our friends to McDonald's because McDonald's was still open. It was next door and we were hungry. We went into Macca's, and while we call it Macca's in Australia, we went into Macca's, and while we were in line, this guy and I, who had already in the underage club, kissed. Not thinking about anyone else. We were swept up in our own little thing that we had going on. It was very beautiful at the time. There was a guy that stood in front of us, and I will never forget what he said. And we were quite lucky in this situation. He said, "Oh, that's lovely. I'm so glad that you two feel brave enough to be able to do that in public." Wow. And I said, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Again, like, I was young, I was naive about that this was even an issue. And go, what are you talking about? I don't feel brave. And he said, oh, two guys kissing in public, that's a really big deal. And it's since then that I've found out how much of a big deal it is. So this guy was just basically saying he found it interesting and he was happy for me. But there have been other instances where if a gay person tries to show PDA, can lead to bashing of gay people, which is ridiculous. Some people, if they're just found out as being gay, there have been gay killings, and that happens around the world.
And it's justified with their fear of the gay person, and there in a lot of places hasn't been a law to protect those people that are being murdered because of that. There are some places that have changed the law to basically say, you know, that is not an acceptable excuse to murder someone. But yeah, it's horrible.
And so a big problem with this law, the way it is at the moment, is it teaches society that what the law says is the right thing. And look, 80% of the time, what the law says is the right thing. So in this instance, they say, oh, gay marriage is illegal. Therefore, in their minds, they can start thinking being gay is completely wrong. In some countries, being gay is actually illegal, funny enough. Yeah. And you can be imprisoned for being gay. But yeah, so
yeah, like in Dubai and that kind of place.
Exactly. So it puts into these people's minds that it is wrong and starts gay bashing and stuff like that. And I just find that completely unacceptable. I want to quickly move on to some comments, but after that, I want to talk about another issue that has come up. So I'm going to let everyone know in case you have some thoughts on this. When we come back from discussing the comments, we're going to be talking about some issues to do with violence on both sides. There have been issues from the naysayers, but there have also been issues regarding some of the people who are for gay marriage and violence as well. So we're going to come back to that as soon as we've looked over the comments. So if you have anything that you'd like to discuss about that, let us know. So Angel says that the law here is very archaic. She's agreeing with us. Absolutely. It is very archaic. And that Holland is very good for equal rights. Yes, I believe Holland was the first country to legalize gay marriage. And as we've heard from Marisa, Canada was the fourth.
Yep.
Excellent. President A says, I personally think Australia is turning into the movie Footloose, where religion is the reasons things are not being passed.
Turning into or already?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say already with you, Sarah, but yeah, completely understand what you're saying, President A. It's ridiculous. Angel says,
with that, though, like with the religion as the excuse, we're living in a society right now where most people, even the people who recognize themselves as religious, do not live by religion, except when it comes to discrimination.
Yeah, which is
like
ridiculous.
Not saying everyone, but a large majority of them, like they don't go to church or they don't go regularly. They're not like there's 613 commandments in the Bible. Most people can't listen.
They have
the 10 main ones.
They have their own interpretations of the Bible and the Bible's teachings and what they want to take on in their life and what they want to disregard. So there are a lot of religious people that have said, you know what, like I'm religious, I go to church, but I don't agree with what people's interpretation of the Bible's thoughts on same-sex couples, same-sex marriage, you know, all that kind of stuff. So,
well, what I'm saying is there's so many people who identify as like a certain religion who've never even really went through the doctrine to understand what their beliefs are. They're just told like, you're a Christian, you don't do this. And so they just, they go with the flow. They haven't done the education like themselves. They haven't read the book. They haven't actually came to an unbiased decision based on their own beliefs. It's how they were raised, and that's that.
Yeah. Continue with some comments.
Yes, excellent. I was enjoying that moment. Okay, Angel says to President A, just think about the Republicans in the USA. It's the same story, civil rights suppressed because of religious ideology. Yeah, so it's definitely something that does affect a lot of countries. I completely agree. And like I want to comment actually on what Marisa was saying, and also Sarah as well. You guys were talking about people who are religious for the sake of certain things that, in my view, are seen as discrimination. My problem that I have with that is, despite the fact that I'm not religious, isn't one of the commandments love thy neighbor? Like
Yeah.
I don't understand how anyone who follows a set of laws, LORES, can in one breath say love thy neighbor and another breath say however, except when it's this case, you know.
I think unfortunately these people still think that they're being loving, but not understanding that by denying someone their rights, or basically saying, you're wrong and you should, all these, whatever they're saying, that it's not exactly a loving attitude. But I think that they take the whole, like, love the sinner, hate the sin kind of attitude, but to the point where it's still not loving the person, if that makes sense. So I don't know, it depends on people's interpretation of these kind of things. But
well, and that goes back to like what I was saying earlier about the YouTube comments and stuff that I've seen. I've seen people fighting so like intently about their beliefs, and people are like, just shut up. No one cares. Like, why are you doing this? Like, if you were a Christian, you wouldn't be on here hating. Like, you're spreading hate. And then they argue, well, the Bible says that it's my duty to share the word of God. And it's like, well, what you're actually doing is making it so people don't want to hear about God.
And I would say that I'm not religious, but I would say that I still believe in God and that I'm still spiritual, and I certainly don't sort of take that attitude. I do believe it's about loving people and respect. I mean, obviously within reason. If you're going and disrespecting people or you're harming people or whatever, then that's not, I don't agree with that. But for the most part, it's about respecting people's choices and who they are and coming together.
Well, no, and like I was raised Catholic, and we were taught in school, like straight out, the golden rule: obey the golden rule at all times, like love one another, treat others how you want to be treated, whatever your interpretation of the golden rule is, just and then you will never be wrong because you will always just be treating people how you want to be treated. So, like, if I want to have equal, be allowed to get married, then I should be treating people who also want that, right? Like, the give and take, like,
yeah,
like that's what it says right there. Like, do this, like, treat people how you want to be treated. Well, that doesn't mean discriminate against them because they're not like you.
Yeah. So just moving on into the whole, and Francois will be back in a moment, into the whole thing where we've been seeing sort of really bad attitudes on both sides. So like from people from the No campaign and people from the Yes campaign, we've been seeing a lot of arguing. We've been seeing a lot of violence or anger and just bad attitudes pretty much everywhere. I'm seeing it a lot online. So what are your thoughts on that, Marisa?
I think, like, on the no side, that a lot of the people who are probably arguing the hardest are actually probably following or falling into the LGBT community, and it scares them. I mean, I hate saying that, but you see so many times where homophobia and stuff like that is a direct result of the fact that these people are living with it themselves. And
Yeah,
so they're making up, they're over exaggerating and they're trying to instill fear. And at the end of the day, their ballot probably says yes.
I think there are a lot of people that are just not, I think they're like the fear of the unknown. They don't understand enough about things like homosexuality or same sex marriage, and they just get angry to get their point across because it is a scary subject for them, especially when they've grown up being taught one thing for most of their life. It is pretty scary to just sit back. It's hard for people to sit back and go, okay, I want to listen to the other side and I really want to hear where you're coming from and your understanding on this because maybe I can learn something. It's hard for people to just keep quiet and listen and try and get some knowledge and understanding on something, people don't know how to do that. So people just, you know, throw their stuff out there.
Well, and like for me, I always identified as straight.
Yeah,
And yet I have always felt an extreme passion that equal rights need to happen.
exactly.
As what if I have a gay child? My friends are gay. Why should I be sitting there like up on my high horse, like, oh, I'm better than you? Just straighten out. Like you'll be fine. That doesn't happen. Like it's like they've proven it scientifically, like that there's DNA strands that say that gay is not a choice. Like
Exactly.
like God didn't make a mistake. Like if you want to bring God into this, God did not make a mistake.
And Francois, as
Like
in relation to the sort of anger and disrespect coming from the Yes campaign, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. So just first of all, want to quickly say to Marisa, yeah, completely agree. God doesn't make mistakes, and
God does
God
not discriminate.
exactly like they say that God makes everyone in his perfect image, and yet there's something wrong with gay people. I never understood that, but okay, we're being told that some people are struggling to be able to hear us. My advice would be to refresh the page, and hopefully that will make a difference. We're not having any issues on our end, so hopefully refreshing the page will make a difference. And I just want to say before I do go into that again, that if you do have any comments or thoughts on this at all, please leave it in the comments section. We do understand some people come along to listen, that's totally fine, but if you do want to express your thoughts, we're more than happy to hear it, no matter what side you're on, as long as you're being respectful. Yeah, so regarding this violent issue, so obviously there's been gay discrimination for as long as I can remember, and violence towards gay people for as long as I can remember. But recently, when I was doing these calls, I heard I had one lady in particular who was telling me she was going to vote yes, and then she heard about bullying and violence from the LGBTIQ community towards those who wanted to vote no. Now, I hadn't heard about this at the time, so I was profusely apologising on behalf of the community. The LGBTIQ community are normally not like that at all. For anyone who knows about this issue, or if there's more than one, then these issues, please know that this is not to be seen as a reflection on the LGBTIQ community. If anything, as a member myself, the LGBTIQ community are bullied and harassed constantly anyway. And when it comes to Australia, some people may not know this, because of the lack of acceptance for the LGBTI community, they actually have the highest statistical rate of suicide in this country. So
Yeah.
So please know that these may be a few select people that are doing this, but the way that the LGBTIQ community works is not about being violent and going against other people. We are looking for human rights. We will stand up for ourselves, but certainly it's not something that we're all saying, let's go and be violent. In saying that, though, we do need to address this issue. And I do want to say, once again, as a gay man, that I am highly offended by anyone from the LGBTIQ community who has done anything violent against anyone who's going to say no. At the end of the
bullying in general.
Or bullying in general. Yeah.
Bullying behavior.
Absolutely.
Well,
completely
one of my
agree.
questions about like it's passion from both sides that are being angry. And like I said with the no side, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's people who are actually struggling themselves with their own sexual identity, trying to figure it out, being enraged. But then on the yes side, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's parents and loved ones and stuff like that who are wanting so strongly for their kids to have the rights, like their loved ones to have these rights, and they're getting more aggressive and violent, more so than the actual people who like who are falling into the category.
I think with the yes side, and I was saying this earlier when we weren't live, I think that it's just really hard for a lot of the yes campaigners or people that are voting yes or agree with it or want it to happen to understand why people aren't for it. Like, I think it's just hard for a lot of people to really come to terms with why people are so against it and everything. This is something that we haven't had. This is something that we've had to fight for. And I've seen a lot of people on the no side saying that the people that are for it are pushing their agenda or pushing their opinion down their throats. And I just don't think that's true. I think that the only reason we've had to come out and campaign for it to happen is because it hasn't happened, because the other side has been pushed down our throats. Basically, you don't have that right, you're not allowed to get married, all that kind of stuff. And of course, it brings out people's passionate side. And I would never, never condone people getting angry or being violent or bullying or anything on either side,
Oh no.
especially on our side, because I don't think that that gets the point across at all. All we can do is say, look, this is why
That
we
is
want it
their
to
own
happen.
type of fear mongering.
Yeah, and
Like
I don't think
you're
that that's the
causing
way.
fear.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the way at all. In the end, if someone's not going to agree with it, there's nothing you can do to change that opinion. All you can do is say, look, this is why I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to say anymore. I'm just going to say what I think, and then I'm going to leave it alone and let you think what you're going to think, because in the end, as I said, you can't change
Respectfully,
people's minds.
you can respectfully agree to disagree. You don't have
Exactly.
to fight. You don't like, there's no need to fight, but there is a need to educate.
So yeah,
And a lot of
whilst I
people feel the need to educate includes swearing and that sort of
no,
thing. And that's not how you get your point across in.
look, that post that I read out just before about what this marriage survey is not about is, to me, a good way to educate. It wasn't necessarily putting anyone down, but it was saying, look, the ideas that you have about this happening are completely unfounded and not right. But it wasn't saying you're stupid, you're bad or anything. It was just saying, look, you have the wrong idea about it, which was educating.
Well,
Yeah.
and like I'm thinking back there, Sarah, to Father's Day there when you were with your dad. And your dad was quite passionate about
Very passionate,
like
yeah.
he was like, what's wrong with it? Like why stop it?
Yeah.
He was
Inserted a
passionate to the
couple of
point of,
expletives, but
yeah, but he would never, and this is the kind of person he is, he would never go, he would get into a very heated discussion, but in the end, he would step back and go, look, he's a spiritual man. He'd step back in the end and go, this is not the way to handle this. Peace and blessings to you. I totally don't agree with you. I think you're
mm-hmm.
so wrong, but I'm going to step back because I can't do this anymore. I don't want to get
Yeah,
nasty.
like, well, and like what I got from him speaking was like, this is my opinion and this is why, and that's that. Like, end of story. Like, people should be allowed to do this. Equality is equality.
He's very
Like,
educational. He likes to educate people as well and sort of break down the arguments and stuff like that. But as I said, yeah, it does get to the point where it is like, I don't want to be nasty. I don't want to disrespect you. I completely disagree. As he said before, Marisa, the agree to disagree thing, it does get
mm-hmm.
to that point, and then he goes, you know, peace to you. I'm backing up now. I'm moving on. I'll stick to what I believe in. You're still a good person, but I definitely don't agree. Kind of attitude, which I think is okay. I think that that's to the point where it's acceptable. But when you go beyond that point, it's not acceptable.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Now, I've got a couple of quick examples. I was sent a video by someone who I will keep anonymous at the moment, who sent me a video, and it basically was showing an example of this. Now, I don't know if I necessarily would call this violence, but still I don't advocate what they did. So the naysayers, to call them that as opposed to the people on the yes side, the naysayers were putting up signs supporting anything and feel free to say no, things like that. And these people from the yes side basically walked over to them and took down the signs and like basically said a few things to the people and then walked off. So that particular occasion didn't get physical. However, there was another one that did, and I'm going to read an article in just a moment. But I do want to say to all of my fellow LGBTIQ community members, violence is never the answer. You know, to half borrow a quote from one of my idols, Gina Liano, don't raise your fists, my version, raise your argument, her version. There is no need to get violent. Certainly raise your argument. That's totally fine. Tell people your opinion. That's absolutely fine. But be respectful of others. I mean, we know as members of the LGBTIQ community, I'm speaking to you guys, my family directly, we know what it's like to be in these situations. Don't do it to them. That's not the right way. It's not going to get us what we want.
And as I said before, in relation to violence and stuff, even just bullying with your words, like, you know, using words that are just really nasty, putting people down, even that to me is violence with words.
Verbal abuse, absolutely.
Verbal abuse, and it's not nice. It's not necessary. You don't go call them names or personal attacks. I hate personal attacks.
Yeah.
What? No, there's no need for that. I understand that you might disagree with someone's view or opinion on things, but don't go personally attack them. Don't. And I've seen this online a lot. People going on to their profile page and pointing out things about their appearance and stuff like that. That's horrible. There's no need for that.
Not at all. And yeah, I've seen a lot of things like on social media that are really disturbing.
And that comes from both sides, by the way.
Yeah, from both sides, absolutely. I feel like for me, I'm saying to come down to my side of people because it's just not necessary. But absolutely, it is happening on both sides. It's not just one-sided. But I did read one thing that I found absolutely adorable, which I will now share with everyone. One member of the LGBTI community was saying that when he votes and crosses yes, that same-sex people should have the same right to get married, he wants to put glitter inside the envelope before he sends it away.
Oh.
I liked that. I thought, oh, that's so sweet.
Now, there has been talks about whether things like glitter and that are acceptable in the survey envelopes, and I'm not actually sure on that, to be honest.
Okay. I honestly, I don't know if the person was being serious or not, but go ahead, Marisa.
Yeah. I think that that's a cute idea, but I think that it is stereotypical, and
yes, it is.
It becomes, and well, these people aren't even mature. Why should we give them the right to be married if they can't even fill out a ballot without putting glitter in it and making a mess all over our office?
I think that's definitely just passion and people getting excited. But guys, if you're going to vote, make sure that your actual answer on your paper, follow the rules, but make sure that your actual answer is not obscured by anything. Make sure that there's nothing that gets in the way of your actual yes or no, I suppose, vote.
And I believe Francois read the thing and it said include only the ballot in the return envelope, nothing else. So I mean, if you're going by that, glitter is out.
That's true. Although I will say,
no glitter, no stickers.
I will say, my beautiful, lovely family, if they do overturn the law, then feel free to have glitter parties around the country. Yeah. And if I'm near one, I will definitely come.
I'll get involved in a glitter party.
Woo!
That'll be the happiest pride parade ever.
I know, right?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, with the voters, what I've been seeing online with the actual survey papers, just be careful about taking photos of them and stuff, only because, and it's okay if nothing's shown and that's fine, but like things like the, personal information or anything, just be careful what you're putting online as well.
Yes.
So your personal information and even the barcode.
Yeah, the barcode as well. I've been
even seeing. That barcode is very personal.
But definitely, if you want to put your view out there, if you want to say, "Look, I'm voting yes," and this, or I'm voting no, and this is why, that's absolutely fine. Just always safety first with your personal information and even the barcode, as we said, because each survey paper has its own unique barcode, and you just want to be safe about things like that.
That's a good point. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Guys, for your own personal safety. So definitely, as Sarah is saying, feel free to like take a photo of the fact that you ticked or crossed yes. Just keep personal information out of it for the sake of your own safety. I definitely agree with that. Excuse me. Now, I just want to read this article. Now, this article came out online this morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time. It is an article by a woman by the name of Miranda Devine, who writes for the Daily Telegraph. So yes, we are going to give her credit for writing this, but no, it is not a good article. It says, it is called Yes Campaigners Show Their True Colours. So I'm going to read this, and I want to say to my LGBTIQ community, this is not the way to handle it. And then after that, maybe we'll come up with some ideas of how to handle frustration, because this is not the way to do it. So here we go. Miranda writes, so now we see why Rainbow Warriors didn't want a people's vote on same-sex marriage. It was because they knew we'd see their true intolerant colours, which how rude, Miranda, but oh, we'll keep going. Yes Campaign HQ knows thuggery won't win over Middle Australia, but their foot soldiers are revealing themselves as fascistic bullies. Okay, I've never read that word before. Okay, like fascist, I think, yeah. Who vilify and intimidate anyone who dares to disagree. Last week's abusive exhibition by same-sex marriage activists at Sydney University was the clearest example yet. On Thursday, about 15 students, including members of the uni's Catholic Society, set up an information table on the main campus thoroughfare with placards saying it's okay to say no. They offered free kebabs and 2 large bowls of delicious Lebanese hummus made by one of their mothers. Oh, wasn't that lovely? It was the first time the No campaigners has had a presence on campus where marriage equality stalls have featured almost every day this semester. There is a quote, and it is, the idea was pretty much to give the No campaigners perspective on campus, said 21-year-old IT student Francis Tamer, one of the organisers. The message was that it's okay to vote no. We weren't looking to convince people how to vote. We're just saying it's okay to have your own opinion. After an hour, 40 to 60 activists arrived with a megaphone led by queer officers, that's in quotes, of the Students' Representative Council, which has an annual budget of 1.7 million. For the next 5 hours, they screamed abuse at the Catholic students, calling them homophobes, bigots, neo-Nazis, gay bashers, and chanting, bigot scum has got to go, and we will fight, we will win, put the bigots in the bin. Catchy, but not a good idea. They upended the table of kebabs and threw bowls of hummus on the ground. They stole pamphlets and placards, threw condoms and glitter at the students, called F off bigots on the path, swore and yelled anti-Christian abuse. Go F yourself, go W yourself off at home with your effing Jesus picture. You don't belong on campus, you are bigots and haters. Didn't you know Jesus was bisexual? Suck my dick.
Wow.
The abuse was also recorded on video. One activist in a yellow t-shirt, who we have chosen not to name, is seen shouting at Tamer, I wish I could kick you in the effing face, that would be so satisfying. They wanted to provoke us, says Tamer, but I told our members, do not engage. A lot of people have now seen the Yes campaign for what it really is. If this is what's happening now, what will happen later after same-sex marriage is enshrined in law. Now, there is more to this, but I think this is a good place to stop, because despite the fact that I don't necessarily agree with Tamer's side of the argument, she makes a brilliant point. If we go out and act this way, then people are going to see the Yes campaigners as bullies. So this is not a good idea. I'm going to turn over to Sarah and Marisa for their opinions on this. And also, Sarah, I want to ask you, this happened in Sydney. I want to know if you'd heard about this, if this made the news or anything like that. Hello?
Is Sarah there?
I can't hear Sarah at the moment. So we'll cross over to Marisa now while we wait for Sarah to come back. Marisa, what's your thought on this?
Well, my question would be, what was the other side saying? Because that's obviously a very biased article, but it still isn't acceptable. Like, I don't care. Like, they were trying to say you're haters by screaming, "We hate you because of what you stand for." That's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
To spread, to try and like what, stop hate? Like, no.
Yeah. I feel like,
And like, no, I was gonna say, like, with condoms and stuff like that, like, you're slapping these people in the face for their beliefs while demanding that they respect yours. That's not how you go about it.
yeah, exactly. It's completely ridiculous. I have a few things I want to say on the topic, but first of all, I'm just going to quickly go to some comments I missed. President A has said that I can release the confidentiality that I had. It was President A who sent the video to me, and I thank you for that, President A. It was good to actually see what's happening. It's always good to be informed. If you guys want to send me anything to do with what's happening during this time on their marriage, don't just assume that I'm caught up on everything. I may not be. I absolutely appreciate it. And President A says, if there's glitter or anything in the envelopes with your vote, the vote won't count. It will be invalid. Yeah, so there you go. So definitely don't do that. Now,
and
go
President
ahead.
A, like, if you want to link that video or any of the information under the social issues chat, just because we've talked about it in the Facebook group, go ahead, and then we can all look at it later too.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
I had technical difficulties.
No, that's
we noticed you vanished.
That's totally fine, but you're back now, Sarah, which is great, and it's good timing because we can now cut over to you. So regarding what I read in the article, I wanted to know two things. One, if it was, if people know about this, if it made the news or the newspaper or whatever, and secondly, your opinion on this.
Look, I don't watch the news much, so I haven't heard about it, but I'm quite sure that it probably made the news and newspapers. In relation to what actually happened, I think that that's absolutely terrible. As we said before, it's not the way to handle things. I don't agree with that at all. And as we said, we can certainly disagree with the other side, but to actually go ahead and, like, protests, I think there's nothing wrong with protesting at all, as long as it's a peaceful protest. And a peaceful protest is nothing like that, in my opinion. I mean, protests can get even worse than that, but that, in my opinion, they're still pretty bad. And it's not going to help.
Well, like I said while you were gone.
Yep.
It would, like, what is you can't change hate with hate. And that's what they were trying to do.
No, you can't. I love that quote too. There's a quote about that. But no, you can't. And it is going to reflect on this side. And I want people to know on the yes side, or within this our community or whatever, to know that it's not reflective of them and who they are. Like, obviously not everyone would take that approach. Not everyone agrees with that approach. I certainly don't. And I'm bisexual. So like I fancy men and women and everything in between. But I certainly would never take that approach to get my point across, and I don't think anyone should, on whatever side, because it's happening on the other side too. But certainly on our side, well, not our side, but like this side, certainly on the yes side, I would definitely stress the point that that is not the way to handle things at all.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that anyone that is a part of the LGBTIQ community, or even those that are also part of the yes side who aren't a part of the LGBTI community but may know people from the LGBTI community, know or that this is not...
in general.
Sorry?
Or just be supporters in general.
Yeah. And these people know that, that this is not what we stand for.
And not just in this situation, it's not necessary and not helpful, but in general, as a whole, that is not the kind of attitude and not the kind of thing people should be doing in life, no matter what it is, no matter what you're fighting about, no matter what you're, whatever. That is not the way.
Exactly right. And all I wanted to say as far as that was concerned is that, therefore, by doing it, it actually does, like the quote is saying in the article, but with, I'm sure, a lot of other people as well, reflect on the community in that we are that way. When you know we're not. Now, also, peaceful protest. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to say that too. I think a peaceful protest is the best way to do this. I totally get it. Being gay myself, I get it. We are very passionate about this.
Yes.
The best way to deal with that anger and that passion is to have a peaceful protest.
I'd just like to read out the quote that I have on my T-shirt right now.
Oh, please do.
I'm reading this upside down, so sorry. It says, "We are here to heal, not harm. We are here to love, not hate. We are here to create, not destroy." I think that kind of does tie into what we're talking about right now.
I love that. It totally does. Oh my God, I want one of those T-shirts.
Next birthday, love. Next birthday. No. I think it's a great quote. I live by that kind of attitude. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, about protests in general, when it doesn't matter what your topic is, whether it's equality, whether it's abortion, whether it's
whatever,
who's going to be the next president, whatever it is, peaceful protests, handing out educational material, volunteering, that sort of thing, no matter what side you're on, whatever the topic is, going to get the message across the most clearly.
I mean, you know what? Even people that are religious don't like the Westboro Baptist Church and the way that they protest, because they're hateful in the nature of their protests. They spew a lot of hate words and stuff like that. So, like, yeah, no one
protesting outside. They've actually had to be banned now. There's laws against Westboro Baptist that says they cannot protest outside of funerals.
Yeah,
because that's how bad they were getting.
Yeah, so it happens. It happens on both sides, and especially in relation to things like homosexuality. But yeah, it happens. A lot of people take that approach, and it's just not cool.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You cannot be spreading hate in order to create change. It's just not going to work.
And I like what you said about handing out educational material, basically educating people, basically, saying this is what you need to know. This is what you need to be educated on, instead of belittling people or getting violent.
Well, and like for me, this like specific vote, it's yes or no on gay marriage. And the big question that people are going to have is, how does this affect me? And the honest answer is, if you're straight, it's not going to affect you. If you're gay, you will be allowed to have a gay marriage that is recognized legally and gives you the same rights as heterosexual couples. That's it. Like,
that's it.
That's the only,
literally.
There's no other effect. It's not going to affect your faith. It's not going to affect your religion. It's not going to affect your family, your children, your future beliefs. Children. It is simply, it will not affect you if you are not gay.
As some people have said, if you don't, just don't get gay married. If you don't believe in it, don't go and get gay married. And that's pretty much it. You can still teach your children the beliefs that you identify with. You can still go about your life the way you want. I do hear a lot of people saying, oh, I don't like it being thrown in my face, the whole gay marriage thing. I'm cool with it, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to deal with it, because that's forcing it down my throat. So what are your thoughts on that, Francois?
I can understand that. That people don't want to see it. Because I mean, if it was if I put myself in their shoes with an issue that I'm good with but don't really care so much about, I can understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, it's when they say it's in their face all the time, how is that?
How much is too much in their face, though? Like, if people are just naturally being themselves, or it happens to be on the news, something about it, because this is something that we're dealing with right now, is that too much in their face? Because, I mean, if you look at the media, and TV and everything, there's a lot of heterosexuality within all those places, but that's not in their face. And there's a lot of sex and stuff as well. But this is
and I think
with
the internet, with the internet and stuff the way it is now, like if I'm Googling gay marriage, my feeds are going to start automatically recommending that kind of thing to me. So then it is in my face. But that's because I started it. I can easily clear my browsing history and it's gone.
But I would
Yeah.
say,
My
to a
Twitter
lot
is
of people that
filled with politics. I mean, but yours necessarily isn't filled with politics, or it might be filled
Sure.
with Australian politics. Mine's filled with American politics, and I'm Canadian. It's not because they're putting it in my face. I'm putting it in my own face.
Yeah.
And like,
I
but
would
then
say,
there are other groups that come to your door and they're like, can we talk about this? To me, that is obtrusive and in your face.
Yeah.
it is quite intrusive. I would say to people that don't like these things in their face, look, it's just as easy for you to not look at it or to not pay attention to it. Like, it's just as easy if you see someone on the street and you don't agree with that, turn your head away and focus on your life, focus on your conversations. Don't pay attention to it if you don't like it. You do have that option just as much.
Yeah.
It's not always like, oh, you should stop doing it because I feel uncomfortable. I don't think that that's necessarily something that should happen. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean everyone else needs to stop to make you feel better about it.
Yeah.
Not saying that, like, it's okay if you find it uncomfortable, that's fine, but you do have a personal choice as well as to what you do in that situation,
Yeah.
which I think needs to be said.
And in your face to me is somebody who won't back down. So, for example, if I'm walking down the street and somebody says to me, "Are you interested in learning about?" and I say, "No, thank you," and they continue, then they're being in my face. They're taking my personal space. They're not taking no for an answer. But if I say, "Oh, sure, I'll listen," and engage in a conversation, then once again, I've chosen that.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly right. It's it's interesting. I do want to say though. Let's just amuse me for a moment. Let's talk about the word homosexuals. I have to say, I don't know about everyone else, but as a gay man, especially when it's taken in certain contexts, I find the term to be rather offensive. When there are people that don't support gays or gay marriage, they will use the word homosexuals in a way that sounds offensive rather than simply saying, gay people or members of the LGBTIQ community. Do I
Oh
stand
yeah.
alone in this?
I don't think you stand alone.
School. When I was in school, people would walk around being like, "He's a fag, he's queer, he's gay,
Oh,
he's a
he's not
homo,"
homo.
and it
Yeah.
and it was and so
I don't think
in
it's the
like
word itself,
any
though.
word can be any word can be used.
Yeah. So
Way
it's the
like
way that the word is being used.
It's the context
yeah.
it's being used in, or the
Yeah.
way it's being used. Like,
Yeah.
I guess, obviously the term homosexual is not a bad word. It's the term for it, right? But
Yeah.
it's the way someone says something, like, and that's the case for anything, any word. It's the context and nature that it's being used in. So I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from, definitely.
Hmm. So there we go. All right. So we're probably going to wrap this up relatively soon. We have been going for over an hour, but if anyone does have anything else that they want to add, I do ask that we keep things at a PG rating and we don't say anything offensive, because anything offensive will not be read out. But if there is anything else that you would like to add, please do so now. As we're going to begin to slowly wrap up. And if you would like to have another chat on this, I do apologize having to go. I have a few things I need to do. But if you would like to have another chat on this at some point, let me know in the comments below once the video is uploaded, and I'll definitely consider doing another one. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say before we head off, and you might want to bring this up a little bit later before you leave, but I did just want to bring up that there are counselling services available to anybody that's being affected by any of the stuff going on right now in Australia. And we will leave links and phone numbers in the description bar for people for counselling services. there is Lifeline Australia, so that's suicide prevention and just crisis support and stuff like that. And as I said, this is for anyone. It's not just for the LGBTQI community. It is for anyone that needs it at this time, especially with everything going on at the moment. I also am going to leave links for Beyond Blue, which is an Australian run thing as well. There's phone numbers for both Lifeline and Beyond Blue that will be left in the description bar, as well as the websites. And they also do have online chat and counselling services as well, and information.
And another one too that's really good is stop-homophobia.com. They're very, very, very active. They have Facebook page, website, Twitter, and they hand out free anti-suicide like business cards, and it's got phone numbers for the UK, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. So you're never alone. Like, that's their motto. You are never alone.
Excellent.
Never. And there's also pages on Facebook if you want to keep up with the marriage equality debate and the same-sex survey and everything. There's one called Equal Marriage Rights Australia, and they usually post frequently about everything that's sort of going on, and they keep up to date. And there's one called Australian Marriage Equality as well, which posts regularly about everything that's happening, especially with this survey and everything. So if you want to keep on board with everything happening, head over to those pages. I'm not affiliated with them, but I do keep a tab regularly of what's going on via those pages.
Sorry, Sarah, I just missed that there. What were the pages you were saying that were affiliated?
I'm not affiliated with them, but they are pages that post regularly about everything that's happening with marriage equality in Australia, and especially with the surveys.
Yeah. Which ones did you mention?
Equal Marriage Rights Australia, and I think you're actually added to that page. And
yes, I am.
Australian Marriage Equality as well.
Yes.
And they both post regularly about everything, especially the surveys and stuff that are happening right now. So if you want to keep on board with everything that's happening, head over to those pages.
And stophomophobia.com is actually more on the trying to make everybody, they're really an anti-suicide type group. They're trying to make everything inclusive and stuff like that. So they are more of a crisis line.
Yeah, we'll add all that stuff to the description bar after this is ended.
Yeah, we definitely will. It'll be great. For everyone to get some information. And if you would like to also, volunteer and be a part of it, we'll leave that information up as well. We are those who are supporting that are saying voting yes are looking for volunteers. For those who are supporting the no are looking for volunteers, I don't have information on that, but I'm sure there is information out there. So join that as well if you'd like to do that. I'm just saying on the yes side, I know that they are looking for volunteers. So if you do have time to help them out, that would be great and muchly appreciated.
Yep, check the description. All the info will be there for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Is there anything else you wanted to say on any of this, Francois?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say violence is not the answer. So once again, to all of my LGBTIQ people and anyone supporting the marriage, same-sex marriage, please do not, let's cease the violence. And as I say, let's raise our argument instead. Have a peaceful protest if you need be, or hand out pamphlets or any other suggestions you've heard here today. Please do not resort to violence, because if anything, it makes us look really bad as well. So think about what you're doing, I think, is actually the best message. When you are reacting, think about what impact that reaction is going to have. Now, I totally get it. I am as passionate as the next person when it comes to this. But when you become violent, it actually makes things worse for us.
Definitely.
So it's not constructive at all.
I just wanted to say as well, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
If you have a friend or family member or somebody that you know that's part of the LGBTQI plus community, tell them that you love them, that you support them. you know, get your friends and family together and just enjoy each other's company and just be grateful for things. And yeah, just try and be supportive of each other and let people know that you're supporting them. Because there are people that do need to know, especially young people at the moment, that they are supported, that they are accepted, and so forth. So
Yeah.
just share the love and support, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Please do. That'd be great if you could. Um, yeah, so yeah, definitely do those both of those things. I also just want to say that for anyone trying to understand this issue, if you are not gay and you're sort of on the fence going, oh, I don't know what to do, here's all I'm going to say. For members of the LGBTIQ community, this vote is basically about basic human rights and equality. Now, I understand some people don't understand the gay community, some people are against the gay community, whatever, that's totally fine. But let me assure you that if the roles were reversed, the LGBTIQ community would be the first to jump up and step in. So for example, and this is not going to ever happen, but for example, were they to say Aborigines can't get married, but we're going to do a vote, we would jump in and say yes, because it's about everyone being treated the same. We're not being asked to be elevated to a higher level. We just want to be treated with basic human decency and kindness, and that's all it is.
And it's about equality. That's why, you know, we're saying
Exactly.
marriage equality
Exactly right.
instead of just same-sex marriage and that's it. It's no, we want equality. We want us all to be equal in that sense.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So please keep that in mind. Also, I want to refer to someone I spoke to, obviously not naming names, keeping them completely confidential, but I had a woman say to me that she was going to be completely honest. She said, Francois, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am neutral to the issue. And so therefore, I'm not going to vote. Here's what I have to say. If you are neutral and leaning more towards the side of a no, I prefer that you don't vote, to be honest, then vote for a no. Because if you are neutral and you vote for a no, then that vote is placed for a no. It is not a neutral vote.
Exactly, yeah.
So I told that person, and I will say the same thing. If you are neutral, I can completely appreciate that. Honestly, if this didn't affect me as personally as it does, I might take the neutral approach. I don't know. I am generally quite neutral in life. But yeah, please don't confuse neutrality with no, because they are two different things.
No, and like that goes
ahead,
back to
Marisa.
what we were saying at the beginning with the not being compulsory, and it does allow for the neutral people to kind of have their own say and just basically be like, we don't care either way.
Yeah.
Like by not voting, it's an I don't care, do what you want.
There are also a lot of neutral voters that have said, because I don't care, I'm going to vote yes, because it's no problem to me whether people get married. I'm not specifically for it, but I'm not specifically against it. So I'm going to say yes anyway. And that's cool. I appreciate that very much. But as Francois said, if you're leaning towards the no vote, but you are actually neutral, it's probably better if you don't vote, because that still does affect a lot of people who are obviously wanting their rights in this situation.
No, like if it's not something that you feel convicted on because of your religion or because of some like profound belief, then that's making you say no, then don't vote if it's a no just because you feel like saying no that day.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Okay, so this has been a very informative discussion. First of all, I want to thank everyone who has come along and joined us in this chat. Thank you for your comments. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. There are already some thumbs up, so thank you for that. That is much appreciated.
Yep. Like, subscribe, and comment.
Yes. Like, subscribe, and comment for more. I also want to thank my wonderful guests on the show today. From Sydney, the wonderful Sarah. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And all the way from Canada, Marisa, thank you very much for joining us as well.
Oh, you're welcome. It means a lot, though. Like, it does. It means a lot, like, for you, and not just for you, but, like, for everyone in the world. Like, this isn't just an issue for Australia. It's just Australia's issue right now.
Yeah, and this is something that has happened everywhere else in the world as well.
It's going to happen again and again and again until every country is equal.
And that's why I appreciate having a non-Australian here to bring in their perspective and their understanding of the whole situation as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Like, that is why it is great that we have someone here who is not Australian, who is saying all that. Yeah, completely agree with you, Sarah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Okay, well, guys, thank you very much. As we say, we'll say it once again, comment, like, subscribe, all of that lovely stuff. And if you would like to see some more chats on this, whether you're Australian or not, please leave it in the comment section once the video does upload, because I have no problem doing more of these. It'll be good to start an open dialogue with everyone, and everyone is more than welcome to attend. So thank you very much for being here. And I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from. And at the end of the day, never forget that, you know, once equality reigns, that we are one step closer to utopia, which is beautiful. And as I always say, give someone you love a hug today and make love and not war.
Definitely.
Bye, guys.
Bye.